Hey, I saw that you watched my webinar on how I launch a profitable podcast that allows me to spread my message and land to me high ticket dream clients. And maybe you would love to have a podcast of your own. Maybe you haven't already. You'd love to grow some more, but you're worried about whether you can get anyone to tune in or not. Maybe you feel like you don't have an existing audience. So how can you actually get people to tune in? Now, the good news is that you actually do not need as big of an audience as you think to have a profitable podcast. And if you are starting from scratch, you don't have an audience, a podcast audience is the best audience to start with. And I'll explain why in these three key reasons. So the first thing is just the inherent authority that you adopt, that you get as a just by having a podcast alone. By having a podcast, you enter this kind of stage where a lot of people, a lot of your competitors, a lot of other people in the space simply don't have podcasts, or they're not podcasting regularly. And by having a podcast, you immediately assume and take on this authority and this thought leadership in your industry. So that immediately comes to you just by having a podcast that you produce consistently. So now if you feel like you want more authority in your space, having a podcast is the best way to build an audience, to have that kind of authority and thought leadership in your space. Now, the second reason is that podcasting and having a podcast is really the only medium when you compare things like blogging, social media, and YouTube, where you have someone, a prospect, a lead, a potential client of yours locked in and listening to you for 30 minutes to an hour. I mean, you look at podcasts like the Joe Rogan Experience, right? People locked in for 3 hours listening in, right? Your podcast might not be that long, but the point is there's no other channel out there, communication channel out there where people are locked in and paying attention to you and only you for that length of time, 30 minutes to an hour. And the third reason is that the podcasting medium, again, compared to social media, blogging, YouTube, has the highest average household income. So now if you are a coach, consultant, expert, entrepreneur that's selling high ticket products, or maybe you're not, but you just want to get more in front of people that have money to spend with you, there's no channel out there other than podcasting that has such high household income. I think the average right now is about $75,000 average household income for people that are listening to podcasts, which is in some cases double other channels out there. So building a podcast audience is by itself, by definition, the most profitable audience that you can build. So if you don't have a podcast audience yet, you don't have a podcast, you don't have an audience anywhere yet, then I believe putting on a podcast audience is the best place to start. If you're thinking about building an audience at all, if you want an audience of potential leads, the podcast audience is the best area really for you to focus on. Now, if you want more help launching or growing a podcast so that you can attract an audience of ideal clients to you, then what I would like you to do is book a call with me. It's a 45-minute podcast strategy call. Absolutely no pressure, no obligation to buy anything. It's really just see if we're going to be a good fit for each other. And if it is a good fit and you want to work with me, then I'll tell you more about my program, how it all works on the call, answer any questions that you have, and you get no pressure, no obligation to buy anything. The worst case scenario is you walk away with more clarity on where to take your podcast next, or how to launch a podcast if you don't have one. Again, it's all included in this free, no cost, no obligation 45-minute podcast strategy call. So if you'd like to book your time with me, all you gotta do is click the link or the button on this post. You'll be taken to a page to book your call, and I'll talk to you soon.